All right, man.
We're back.
Yeah. I feel like we haven't done a face-to-face in a while.
We haven't, no. What was the last top 5 Metroids?
Yeah.
It's a good episode.
It was a good episode.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't agree with that, though.
Yeah, we got a lot of hate, and I'm sorry I haven't played every single Metroidvania known to man. I hope you can forgive me. I like them, though. That should count for something, but, yeah.
I can't forgive that. It's inexcusable.
It really is. It's horrible.
We had some fun comments on that.
That was awesome. Yeah, all kidding aside, it was fun to have, the engagement, so keep it up. Maybe we'll get some more views on this one.
So, what exactly are we going to be talking about today, then, that brings us in for one of these?
One of these. Well, this one actually comes from one of our regulars. Jacob was in the shop when John was in on a day he wasn't, doing a podcast. And we're going to talk about video game adaptations today.
This is fun. So, can you be a little more... Adaptations is in how? Are we talking, breakfast cereals? Are we talking, toy lines?
That'd be awesome.
That would be
an
awesome.
hour-long podcast about breakfast cereals.
Nintendo. It's for breakfast now. Nintendo. It's a cereal. Wow.
And just so you know, this show is likely to be about an hour long. You can tell before you click on it how long the episode is. So if you decide that watching an hour-long plus episode of something isn't for you, you might not just want to hit play. Just a little insight into how things work around here.
Yeah, but we're going to be talking about first video games that were adapted into films, and then we're going to talk a little bit about films into video games.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is fun because we actually went down a little bit of a rabbit hole before the show when we were prepping for it, and I was initially surprised, I should say, at how many adaptations from movies were turned into video games, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, right. Just looking even at the DS, the amount of shovelware that came out for that thing. It was just bad adaptations of movies and stuff.
Right. Yeah, there's so many good ones but that we all remember, but then there's also ones that we were like, oh, that got a video game?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of stuff we didn't know.
Yeah. And that list was not exhaustive at all.
No.
We should be editing the Wikipedia as we go, but we don't share our information unless it's on the YouTube channel. So
We're very selfish.
We're very selfish, yeah. Jumper does exist for PS2, Wikipedia.
So much for peace and quiet.
That blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jumper, not a bad movie. Not a great movie.
Yeah, it's fun.
But not a bad movie. It's
yeah,
fun.
Yeah, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
Never played the game.
I bet it's not good.
You can buy it if you want, though. It's on the shelf.
Is it here?
Yeah.
Nice. How much is it?
I don't know, not much. It can't be much.
We should give away a copy of Jumper.
Yeah. We only have one copy, so hopefully no one buys it before this. We'll either give you Jumper or an IOU for a copy of Jumper.
How do we even, we'll figure that out. Maybe we'll give away a copy of Jumper. That might be fun, actually.
Yeah, I'll pull it off the shelf.
Nice.
No one's going to buy it.
No.
Yeah.
Ever.
All
right, so if this is your first time here, I'm John.
I'm Brendan. We are the New Game Plus podcast. We are in New Game Plus in Kingston, New Hampshire, retro video game store. We also have a coin-op arcade. It's 160 Main Street, and we are open every day except Mondays, 11 to 7. So if you like what you see, come on down. We can chat. I'm always here. Captive audience. I can't leave until, 7 o'clock. It's on the door. That's like a contract or something.
As much as you might want to sometimes.
Yeah. Especially when John starts talking about random movies no one's ever heard of.
Well, I do that a lot, actually. But speaking of movies that people might have heard, this isn't necessarily, I wouldn't call this a best of or worst of. I think it's more of just kind of a discussion just about how many of these actually existed. Maybe what are we trying to accomplish here again? I know we talked about it. It's I
think that how this may turn out, and we'll see because This is the New Game Plus podcast. Things go off
Tangents.
the rails like crazy. We'll probably end up talking about Celeste again for 20 minutes.
I hope so.
But what I would like to see is if we can come to some sort of consensus through conversation about what makes a good adaptation from video game to film.
I've seen better.
And then sort of, flip it and see the opposite.
Okay.
And whether it's the same or different or what have you.
Yeah.
But, I feel like there's much more good film to video games. There's much more of them in general, like from the list that we saw. But I feel like there's very few actual good game to film adaptations.
Yes,
So-
I would agree with that as well. I remember as a kid, it was one of those things where you just always, it seemed like one or the other was always happening. Mm-hmm. You'd either be like inundated with like some new you'd always have that relative or like someone who'd show up for like maybe a birthday or Christmas that would like give you like this game that they just saw that's like, oh, they like Transformers. And
Right,
it's just
yeah.
like this awful like adaptation of something.
Yeah,
And,
it could be awful, yeah.
I think it would always made me wonder if like that's how like those existed, like how those got purchased. Like there was
Right.
always like an audience for those, and you always wondered who they were exactly. But
It's got to be the grandparents getting scammed by, the game store clerk. Like, oh, yeah, I got to unload all these, ET cartridges. Like, yeah, he'll love this one, Does he like Reese's Pieces? Like,
who doesn't?
I mean, yeah, ET did.
ET did. Also, like the ET thing, like it's on the list. Obviously, ET's on the list, but ET's been talked about to death. Like there's a landfill. Like there's a whole history about the ET Atari game. So notoriously known as one of the worst games of all time.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing we can add to that conversation.
There's a whole documentary about them
Yeah, there
finding the
is. I've watched
landfill.
it.
Like, yeah, it's pretty good.
It's
yeah.
not bad, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, we can't touch that.
No.
We don't have a landfill full of cartridges.
No. Do you actually have any copies of that here?
E.T., no.
No? That'd be awesome if you did.
It would be, but no.
Fair.
Yeah.
So I guess, do we want to start on like what, like maybe like a good adaptation looks like from game to film?
From game to... yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we can start with, Mario, because you have two sides of that coin.
Yes, you
right
do.
there.
Yes.
You
It's
have
a great example.
Yeah, because when you and I grew up, Mario was, I remember being psyched about the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yep.
Who's this Cooper clown? We gotta talk to that goofball now.
And it was absolute garbage.
Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo,
Yeah, John
Dennis
Leguizamo.
Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper, the Bowser, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Everything about that movie is terrible.
Yes.
Like, the only thing they got right was, like, the Mario and Luigi costumes, kind of.
Kind of.
Which was just a guy in a red shirt and a green shirt and overalls, so it wasn't hard to mess up.
Yeah. And Bob Hoskins, honestly, like back in the day, Bob Hoskins isn't a terrible choice. Bob Hoskins was the man.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything else, everything about that movie's bad. Like
Right.
the history behind that movie is very interesting. Like they were just like writing that script on set day to day, and it changed from day to day. They had no idea what they were doing. Like the people who made it were like a husband-wife combo. And
Yep.
It's just like it was just the whole production was just like a giant shit show. So
You can tell.
yeah, you really can.
Right.
So it's no surprise that when they were making a new Mario Brothers movie a couple years ago, what did it just come out last year?
Yeah, I believe it was last
Okay,
year.
last year. That Nintendo stepped in and was like, hey, we're going to have a little quality control on this one. And
Right.
the result kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah. And, the new one, if you haven't seen it, I recommend going out and seeing it because, in my opinion, it's an incredible movie. They do a great job. And one of the things that the old movie missed that the new movie just hit out of the park was, I want to say, like, the tone of it. It felt like a Super Mario game on the screen, And yeah, there's all sorts of throwbacks and they're baiting on your nostalgia and everything else like that. But I feel like if you don't have that, you end up with that old John Leguizamo Super Mario where it's, I don't even know if those people ever played Super Mario.
a loyal child of the royal family. Goomba.
I really don't.
Yeah. I don't see Bob Hoskins playing that.
I don't feel like anyone involved in that production ever played Super Mario.
Yeah.
Because all they had was what these characters kind of looked like, and then they did their whole, let's throw our own spin and reimagine it with, Toad and the bombs. Like, they're there, but they're not really there.
Yeah.
And the weird jump boots.
Come and get it, big boy.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much wrong with that movie that it was almost insulting to call it Super Mario.
Yeah.
So, but the new one's great.
It is.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think like the new one is like as good as you can make a Mario movie.
Right.
I went into it having no real expectations, and like I was just smiling the whole time.
Yeah.
Like all the little throwbacks, like the like Wrecking Crew throwbacks in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of like references for like no matter how old you are, you're gonna like walk away with understanding something that's for you.
Yeah,
like,
they're going to have references from the original Donkey Kong all the way up to, the new Mario Kart that, your little nephew's 5 years old has played.
Yeah.
They have something for everybody. There's an Easter egg for every generation that grew up with Mario.
Yeah, and that's I think that's the beauty of that movie too, is it's like and that's the beauty of Mario in general, is like it's kind of a timeless thing. Like whatever we did a best of Mario episode, and like however you want to look at those games, like for whatever generation you're growing up in, it's gonna touch it in some way. Like there's gonna be a Mario game for everybody.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we were playing Mario earlier.
We were. Yeah. We put Mario World up on the TV here. I have a TV where you can play games if you come in. Mario World for the Super Nintendo is currently on. So
Yeah, always a classic.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is a good sort of baseline for what we're looking at. And then there's a couple other really well-known movie adaptations for games that I think we should touch on. Let me think what else. So we have fighting games, which, I mean, Mario doesn't have much of a plot, which...
It doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
Yeah.
And it, allowed the new Mario movie to make, it gives you freedom.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, Princess Peach gets, or somebody gets kidnapped and Mario saves them. That's all you really need. I feel like fighting games sometimes have a lot of plot in the background.
Yeah.
Which would seem to make a good movie, but I think like the best we're going to get here is mixed bag.
Destroy everything.
Yeah. That's being generous, I think.
Yeah, that's being more than generous. I mean, we're talking about two of the biggest fighting franchises ever, at least when we were growing up. Your personal favorite, Mortal Kombat.
Absolutely.
And mine, which is a better game, which is Street Fighter. Right?
That's awesome. The Mortal Kombat movie. I remember seeing that when it came out.
Yeah.
I saw it in the theater. And like I liked it a lot back then. I was 15 when that came out. It was 1995, I think that came out.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like 15 when that came out, and like that was like Mortal Kombat 2, as you know, is like my jam. So that was like coming out right around the time where we're hot off Mortal Kombat 2. We got a movie coming out, and it's funny because like even watching that movie now, it's not a good movie, but it is. Like, it's pretty well made.
Yeah.
The production's good. There's some really cool costumes. It's done by Paul W.S. Anderson, who's notorious for making bad movies. He made, like, Event Horizon. He did the Resident Evil movies, the first ones. Event Horizon's not as great as you remember. Yeah. It's tough to revisit.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's another
conversation.
We're not, because, I mean,
But Resident Evil, he did do the first Resident Evil. He's kind of a notoriously not great filmmaker.
Right.
But Mortal Kombat's fun. It's like the music. The music's like as soon as that movie starts, like that song was like on every.
Yeah.
Like song was everywhere when you were in the 90s.
It was a meme before memes.
It was.
Were memes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the costumes, like you said, like they're spot on.
Yeah.
And I feel like, compared to Street Fighter, which is more cartoony, having, the realistic graphics of Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2, it's a lot easier to avoid that sort of uncanny valley or that weirdness. I don't know if it's exactly uncanny valley, but that weirdness when you see like, who is his name who played M. Bison?
Raul Julia.
Yeah, who's a great actor.
Great actor.
But
Are you men enough to fight with me?
Anyone who opposes me will be destroyed.
Colonel, you can't!
Oh, yes, I can.
doesn't look like M. Bison.
Yeah.
And
it sucks too because like that was the last movie he made before he passed. So
right, and it's like
yeah.
I
just always prefer to remember him as Gomez Adams, but
which
he's so good in that. Yeah,
should just
those are so good.
Yeah, just talk about Adams family.
Both of them.
Yeah, they are. One or two. What's your?
I love both of them equally. It's like which
okay.
I will watch. I can't watch those without watching them back to back. It's always a double feature.
Okay, I respect that.
But yeah, like I think that's also true of like anime adaptations too. For me, it's like anything that's like kind of has a cartoony vibe and you try to make it realistic is always goofy. I honestly, I don't know if I can think of I think the new Cowboy Bebop Netflix series was as close as you can get to it being good, but that like kind of just.
I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it?
I love Cowboy Bebop. I couldn't do it myself.
Cowboy Bebop is one of my favorite things.
It's amazing. Yeah.
The show feels the heart's there.
Yeah.
But like they changed some stuff that just doesn't quite work.
Okay.
But like it's there. I would recommend watching it. It's nowhere near as bad as it was made out to be all.
I'm never gonna.
You just don't want to do it.
No, I don't want to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But I think like that's sort of like you have like a hurdle where you're trying to make something that's goofy and cartoony into something realistic. And Street Fighter as a movie is.
Yeah. Well, you see that a lot of adaptations, even like, it's not technically anime, but everybody loves Avatar: The Last Airbender. And then you had the M. Night Shyamalan film, which was universally panned. And then the Netflix came out recently, which had mixed reviews. So it is very hard to do that.
It is.
Stylized anime. Like, how do you make someone look like Guile and not look like an idiot? Or Goku.
Yeah.
How do you have Super Saiyan hair and not just like...
Or Blanca.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that? You just have to like go all in and embrace it, I think. If you're going to like make something that weird, you have to embrace it. And Street Fighter just kind of is like this weird, like it doesn't quite toe that line. It's like, it's like, we're going to go more, they go more serious with it, but it doesn't quite work.
Yeah. And then it also has like weird little parts that are supposed to be comedic in it. Like it doesn't nail like its own, Like, I feel like Mortal Kombat felt like Mortal Kombat.
It does.
You know? And Street Fighter did not feel like Street Fighter at all.
Now then, where are those hostages?
It was, like, all over the place as a movie.
Yeah, it's such a... Like, I don't... Like, it's weird, too, because, like, realistically, what kind of expectations you have going into a video game. Like my personal opinion is like far as like movies and video games go is like I'm a huge movie nerd, but I think video games are superseding like the ability for a movie or for a movie to tell a story because games are just longer. You're like the car, like you are controlling the character, so it's like you're more immersed in a game than you are a movie.
Right.
So I think that narratively, like it's just so far beyond what a movie can do. But some of those stories don't necessarily translate as well into a movie if you're going to turn them into something. Because a game is also like has that hurdle of like regardless of how good the graphics are in a game, you can tell you're playing a video game.
Right.
It's not photorealistic. So.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like there's strengths and weaknesses to either one. And from our conversations, I'm sure that, our audience knows if they've listened multiple times, I'm not a big fan of the way narrative games are done, as in like movie-like games.
Yeah.
But I feel like in movies, the characters usually have a lot more depth than they do in video games. Because a video game, like the main draw for most people is the gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really think about Mario's, you know, how he feels about going to capture, you know, Bowser and get the princess back for the 18th time in a row.
Right.
Like, it's not this deep, you know, introspective, I'm not watching The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and getting deep into somebody's head, you know?
I see, Nate. You're fond of me lobster.
And I feel like that's what movies are generally better at, is that they do have like that depth and that meditation on character and themes and everything else like that.
No, I totally I agree with you, and I can see that viewpoint. If you get a game, something like take like Hellblade for example, where that's like a deeply immersive, like that couldn't be a movie. Because that would be like an 8-hour movie, and part of like there's not much gameplay to that game either. So with that game, it's like you do care about the narrative and you do care about the character, because that's sort of the whole purpose of it. So I think objectively, it's more just like about what I think it might just apply more to like specific genres of game more than others.
Right.
But like, I just think for the intents and purposes of like, if you're gonna make a movie out of something, you either need to embrace the silliness of it and the spirit of it, like you did with Mario.
Right.
Or if you're going to make like a, I don't know, like take for example, like another one that we both like, Silent Hill.
Yep.
Silent Hill is a really solid movie version of the games.
Right.
Has the spirit of the games.
Yep.
Like some of the weird, like messed up. They did a really good job at capturing the vibe of a Silent Hill game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's really like the number one thing, is capturing the vibe. Because if you have the vibe of the game in your movie, it tells the audience that like, oh, like, you know what this is about. You know, you've spent enough time, or you know, have paid enough people to convince me that you care about this as much as I do.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing worse than when some, you know, bunch of suits and money come in and just buy up an IP and put out something that feels nothing like what, you know as a fan.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like, you know, that's everything that we're going to say is decent. And I think that's the only things that we were able to come up with as decent adaptations, right? Unless we disagree on this last one. But
yeah, I don't know, like, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Because there's not really as many as you would think.
From games to movie?
Yeah, because we're ignoring the whole U-Bowl.
And again, we're not going to talk about all of them, because the show would be 8 hours long, and you know, some people don't like a long show as it is.
We just need to put timestamps.
Timestamps. Chop it up for smaller people under 40. So, but things like, you know, like the Doom movie. Did you ever see that?
That was the one with that. Yeah, with
it had like Carl Urban and The Rock. There's like a
like the weird first.
Yeah, they go into like a first person perspective with that, and it's like the only really good part of that movie. But like that, for that 5-minute sequence, it feels awesome.
Yeah.
It feels like a Doom game, but like I also don't need a Doom movie.
Yeah.
So I guess like there's also like, I don't know, like you're saying, like some are bad, but like some of them also just don't need to be made in general.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I guess there's there's like a Dead Alive movie, like the fighting game, like they made a movie out of that, and it's not good.
Do me up.
Yeah, fighting game primarily known for, you know, the jiggle physics that they were able to do on the PlayStation. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Changing your age up to 99.
Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that I feel like kind of adds a little bit of nuance is Resident Evil. Because I feel like visually Resident Evil does very well, but they turned it into an action movie when this is a game, when it originally came out, where you moved, like, the control scheme in the original Resident Evil is the actual enemy of the game.
Yeah.
Like, you have, you know, your forced perspective on every single room. your up turns into the left and right depending on what direction you're going and your character. Like
those games are impossible to revisit now as a modern gamer.
Yeah, and then the video game feels like it's a Devil May Cry, you know, where it's crazy action movie basically. So that's another one where they missed the vibe, like you said. You know, they got the visual down pretty well, you know.
Yeah, they try to incorporate like some things, like like the dogs or whatever. Like, later, like the liquors and stuff, but they really were just kind of cheesy.
Yeah, they were just cheesy
bad action movies.
Right, exactly.
One of the ones that you and I were talking about earlier that was kind of like rides that line kind of right down the middle is the Warcraft movie.
Yeah, the Warcraft movie.
Whatever you plan to do it now!
I remember going to see that in the theater and
same. Yeah.
being like immediately drawn in because it starts off with like you get like the Universal logo and like the music like kind of like these like drums that like brings you in.
Right. Plus it's Warcraft.
Yeah, plus it's Warcraft and we both love Warcraft.
Everybody I don't know anyone who's played and grew up with Warcraft who's like I hate it. They might not like Blizzard and you know, if you're interested, we do have an episode about the history, the rise and fall of Blizzard, so you can check that out too.
Nice. Good shout out.
But once that movie starts going and it has to be a movie, it isn't a movie.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess.
It is an entire mess. Yeah. Like, the characters are just all over the place. If you didn't play any of these games and you had no idea what was going on, like, if you walked out of a theater and you asked that person, like, can you name a single character in that movie? They might be able to tell you, like, Thrall, maybe.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and the cast is enormous. It's all over the place. Like, it was just... It looked like Warcraft. It sounded like Warcraft, like, but it was like
just kind of generic. It didn't have the good narrative that Blizzard games are kind of renowned for. Like,
exactly, especially that golden age of Blizzard, Warcraft 1 through Warcraft 3. You had incredible storytelling. Yeah, like some of the best in gaming at that point. Those cinematics are still to this day like incredible. Yeah, you know, Arthas going into the throne room.
I was just gonna say, dude, the Arthas, the rise and fall of Arthas is still one of my favorite like storylines in the game.
Yeah, it's so good, and like that was right around like the peak of World of Warcraft. Like that should have been a easily a trilogy if they didn't fumble that first one.
And it still made a bunch of money. It made more than enough money to warrant a sequel that never happened.
Right, because I mean the writing was kind of on the walls. Like at least I feel like you're a movie guy. I watch a lot of movies. That was not a good movie.
It's not a good movie. You are correct. Yeah. There's some. You know what's funny is it's like. It almost feels like two movies. Like the all the stuff with the orcs is awesome. Yeah. But once you get into the humans, like the human stuff is just so like generic and
it's bland. Tacked on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very tacked on.
There's too many, and that's what was great about the storytelling in the Warcraft campaigns is you're focused in on, I'm the orcs and I'm going through the dark portal or whatnot. You know, I'm the humans. I'm trying to stop them. Each campaign you took from those people's perspective and they built the story over those missions. Yeah. But this is everything just glommed together. Parts are cut out, parts are thrown in, like it's all over the place.
It really is.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it's a mess. Yeah. But I think like as far as I think Warcraft's a good example of like the sort of like the I don't know, just like the mediocrity in general of most of these kinds of adaptations. Mm-hmm. Like, we were also talking a little bit. I know you said you didn't see it, but the Uncharted movie was just such a.
I heard it was just horrible.
So bad. Yeah, it's just so bad. Like, and it's just like you're not like when you talk about something, you just want like the spirit of it. Right. It's like if you can't even get like the right people to play the characters, if that doesn't make sense, it's like Nathan Fillion should have been Nathan Drake. Regardless of how old he is, it doesn't matter. Right. And you just get some other older guy with a mustache to play Sully. Mm-hmm. You get Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland. It's like you're just so off the mark right off the bat. Yep. Like no amount of trying to recreate some of the set pieces from that game are going to make it a good movie.
Exactly.
Then it was just hacky trash. But speaking of hacky trash, to flip the coin onto the other side and talk about stuff that started as a game or started as a movie that got turned into a game. Yep. That's
That's
honestly far more egregious.
Enormous list.
Yeah.
Absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
So, like, we would be here until we died of natural causes if we had to walk our way through absolutely every single tiny. There were adaptations on that list that were movies I didn't know were made from something else.
Yeah.
Like, that's how, like, many there were.
There's a Highlander game, like from like what was it, like 1986?
Yeah.
It was like legit from 1986, and it was like a old Commodore 64 game, right?
Yeah, it was apparently a fighting game.
Yeah, which is nuts. Like
Yeah.
I never knew that, and
Yeah.
like I'm sure it's terrible. Yeah, it's just wild the amount of stuff that like just completely flies under the radar.
yeah.
It's just mass marketed and just put out there, just churned out just to make a few extra bucks.
It's a great movie, though.
Highlander's amazing.
Academy Award for greatest movie of all time.
I don't know greatest of all time, but it's damn good.
Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights.
We're going deep cuts right now.
That one slipped right past me. Saw that movie once.
We've kind of established, I think, at this point, what makes a good game to film adaptation. And now, when we're flipping this coin, so mostly that's, vibe. I would really say like vibe, tone, setting,
Yeah.
Authenticity is really what makes it. Because the stories, you can almost do whatever you want with a lot of game stories. There's a lot of leeway there. Now when we're flipping it, and we were looking at, some of the best games adaptations, like, for example, Aladdin
Yeah, dude.
for the Genesis.
Yeah.
Which I think the Genesis version is better.
Dude, 100%. One of the rare instances where a Genesis port is better than the Super Nintendo
that's
port.
true. Yeah. And I mean, I would say that one, it does also very, very get the tone of that movie.
Yep.
It is very Aladdin. It's not one of these weird things where you play a game and you're like, that kind of looks like a character, especially the older stuff, that we grew up with. A lot of it was sort of hit or miss.
Yeah.
But the music, it follows the plot more or less as you go through. And the gameplay is incrable.
And the graphics are gorgeous. Like they really sunk a lot
The
of money and time
animation.
into it. The
and
animation's
everything.
beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot more frames than that than even on the Genesis, you look at Sonic, he has like 3 different poses. That and Aladdin's like fully animated the whole time. The run animation is great in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what other good ones?
I like the Lion King port a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have like, that game is, this is the kind of like dedication and time we had back in the day, like when we grew up. Like, I beat the hell out of Lion King. I know that game's like notoriously, especially like the giraffe level where they tilt their heads and stuff.
Yep.
It's like just trial and error. I would just lose and then remember the pattern, go back, play the game, beat it. That game was like, it was all just like memorization.
Yeah.
So like, as a kid, you got nothing else to do. I just play that game until I beat it. But like, it's much harder than Aladdin, but it's also like,
I don't believe you. I never beat that. I could never beat the giraffe level.
Oh, really?
But I'm also, a few years younger than you, so
Yeah.
I didn't have that tenacity at that point. I was like,
that's all I did.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
I just.
And I've played some hard games, and I've beaten some hard games, but no, I've never beaten Lion King.
Yeah, that's one of those.
It is
tough ones.
Yeah,
but that's another great example of like a game that kind of there's like awesome voice acting and stuff in it too, voice clips, which was rare back in the day.
Right.
And I would say with that one, like the Genesis and Super Nintendo ports are actually pretty equal. They're both.
Aren't they basically the same?
They're basically the same, yeah. Whereas like Aladdin
remember.
was like two different kind of games.
It was, yeah. It was a little bit different. All right, what else did we? That's the problem with this one is there's so many that we looked at that it's like, how can you like? Oh, arcade Terminator 2.
Hey, look out! Excellent.
Yes, dude.
Terminator 2, yeah. That game, like, I feel like one of the strengths of that game is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Terminator 2 arcade game took place in the future, right?
Where it starts in the future.
It starts in the future, yeah. So, and just having that intro where it's expanding on something that they sort of barely show in Terminator 1 and 2, the movies, and being able to like explore that, I feel like that's such a good hook for an adaptation. If you can take like some little side part or something that's not, really gone into in, a movie and allow the player to play in that. It's like Shadows of the Empire.
Oh,
in 64.
Yeah.
Where Dash Rendar, he's, the same time period as the original trilogy, but he's, in the background, or he's in,
Yeah, that was based off a book, I think. Like
I believe so.
Yeah.
There are so many Star Wars.
There are.
But, you see the Millennium Falcon take off in Hoth, and, you're just outside of, Obviously, there's a billion different Star Wars games.
Yeah, so many.
And I feel like a lot of them do that sort of thing well, where they're either, like, not the main characters, or it's going to be some side thing like Rogue Squadron games.
Yep.
Like obviously Rogue Leader, the Battle of Yavin, all that stuff happens in the movie, but all these other side missions, you get to see cool planets and do other things.
Yeah.
Like the Jedi games, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, same sort of thing. It's like there was such an expansive universe, and for them to just not be like, oh, you're playing as Luke and you're, go collect like the water filters for Uncle Owen as like the first mission, and then like I feel like when movies to games do that, it's like easier for them to succeed.
Yeah, and I think a great example of like a direct movie to game translation is like the Super Star Wars series for the Super Nintendo.
Right.
They did all three games, Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, and all three of those games are great.
They are, yeah.
They're all just like, they just take like settings from the game and just sort of, it's neat because it takes like the basic idea of the movie and getting from one set piece to the next, but they just make it like a cool platforming action game that's super hard. Like those games are super hard.
Yeah.
And it's also a great example of taking a movie and making a good game out of it.
Right.
To go back to like Terminator, which I own, which I'll throw some footage of in here for everybody to see.
You gotta have the music. Oh
yeah. That game's so fun. It's also miserable. That game's so hard.
It is, yeah.
It's a super hard game.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like a classic, dude. Like I loved that game. Like when I was a kid going to the arcade, like
oh yeah, if you went to a pizza shop or something and they had T2, you're like, all right, like I don't care how long this pizza's gonna take.
Stealing your quarters. Yeah. That game, I never beat that game in the arcade.
No.
Even owning it when it being free to play, I've beaten it like once. Jeez. That game's so like just grueling. That's the best way to describe that game is grueling. It like it's just designed to take your money. It's so awesome and terrible at the same time.
Yeah, it was a great one.
One of the other ones we were talking about that we both really like that's kind of a surprise is The Thing.
Yeah.
PlayStation 2 and Xbox
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's what it
It
originally
was
came
either
out
that
from.
or the generation after.
I think it was that early. Yeah, I think it was that early. I think it was
early?
PS2 and
Yeah.
Xbox.
Okay.
I'll put it in
well-
the show.
Was it Windows as well? PC?
Probably.
I think there was a PC port as well.
That's a damn good game that
Oh yeah.
takes the essence of what the movie is, but has nothing to really to do with the
Main plot.
Main plot.
Right, yeah. But that's also, like, that movie's incredible.
It's one of the best.
Like, if
horror
you've
movies.
never seen The Thing, like, if you take nothing else from this podcast, go and watch The Thing. Like, when I was in my teens, my brother and I would watch The Thing, like, literally, like, a couple times a week during every summer.
Yeah.
Like, it was just our jam. Like, you know, trying to figure out, oh, when did this person turn and when did this person turn? And the whole, the mechanic of the blood.
Yeah.
If you heat up their blood, you know, the blood is part of the organism, so it'll react.
Yep.
That just lends itself so well to a video game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stay the hell away from me, I'm warning you.
Williams, I need your help.
Bullshit, you're infected just like the rest. Come any closer and I'll fry your ass.
You know,
Yeah.
and the paranoia that, you know, the whole thing is this.
Yeah, there was like a trust system in that
There
game.
was,
I remember.
yeah.
That game
Yeah.
was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And
Yeah.
it's just that setting, this isolated setting where not only are you away from civilization, but you might be the only human left.
Or you might not be. You might
Or
be
you
the
might,
thing.
and you don't even know.
Yeah.
That was another thing about the
Yeah.
movie, you know? These people didn't know that they were aliens until, you know, they're having a heart attack and somebody shocks them in their hand and get ripped off and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like, I introduced that movie to Caitlin this past winter. I was like, she'd never seen it. I was like, we're gonna wait till it's like a blizzard out. And like, there was one night. It was like she was over. It was like a blizzard. I was like, we're watching The Thing tonight, and
Yeah.
easily one of the best horror sci-fi movies like ever made.
I love that
Hands
movie
down.
so I
And a
can't recommend it enough.
damn good game adaptation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, really good.
To continue on with like some more good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you were a big fan of like the Lord of the Rings games.
I love those ones. The beat 'em up ones.
Yeah.
Like, they were so much fun just because, like I have mixed feelings about the Lord of the Rings movies themselves because, like, as you're, like, a movie nerd primarily, I'm a book nerd.
Yeah.
Other than, you know, obviously, Exhibit A through Triple Z, like, and I feel like the tone of the movies was a little more actiony than the books were. It's beside the point because the action scenes in the movies as like a spectacle were amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these games, being able to play those out, like, oh, you're in Helm's Deep, you know, and it's like
yeah.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that was my favorite one of those. I was obsessed with that game, the Two Towers game. I had it for the GameCube.
Yep.
And the Helm's Deep battle and stuff like that.
So good. It was incredible.
I loved that game back in the day. I'm curious. It's one of those things I probably like don't want to revisit because I'm sure it doesn't hold up. But at the time when it came out and how huge Lord of the Rings was at the time,
Right.
that game was just like it just got me into like a zone and I just wanted to play it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I love those type of games too, and they always give you like a couple unlocks. Like,
Yep.
you know, you can unlock, I think, Gandalf the White was an unlock in Return of the King, maybe, and maybe Glorfindel or somebody. But like, yeah, you unlock, you know, Legolas or something. Your arrows start blasting people across the screen. It was amazing.
And it's funny because it seems like such an exciting thing back in the day, but you know, just even getting like the FMV sequences is like a reward. Like from clips from the movie was like a
Right.
big deal. I had a buddy who had Demolition Man for the 3DO. And awful movie to video game adaptation.
Yep.
The 3DO in general is just garbage, but
They didn't know what they were doing.
I had no idea. But like part of what made that game cool, even though the game itself was garbage, was watching sequences in FMV clips from the actual movie,
Right.
like before like the game would happen, and like it was just like a simpler time, I guess, because that's the kind of thing that you would just be like mesmerized by.
Right.
because it was so new and revolutionary at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, like now I think when I'm looking at like an adaptation for something, I'm just being probably a little more critical than just throwing in some FMV sequences to fan service me.
Yeah, well, I mean, just from doing the research and talking, like there's obviously so many more film to game adaptations.
Yeah.
So obviously the bar has to be higher if there's going to, you just have more of a chance for having a quality game the more, times you do it.
Another ones we were talking about that you and I both loved that was an odd one was the Enter the Matrix game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was kind of, I wonder, was it universally panned when it came out, or was it like kind of a mixed bag as well?
I feel like if you weren't like our age demographic and a male and like super into the Matrix, like, I don't know about you, but like when the second Matrix came out, I thought it was an incredible movie.
Yes.
And now watching it as an adult, I think there's like, they should have just stopped at the Matrix.
Oh, absolutely. I rewatched all those. When the fourth one came out, I watched all three of those again.
Yeah, and they should have just been, because the Matrix ends at a good point as well. It's perfectly contained. Yeah,
solo piece.
Yeah, so I feel like that's the one that if I went back and played it now, I'd be like, this game is garbage. Like I'm pretty confident that we have Enter the Matrix here. I'm pretty sure if we plugged it in and played it, you and I both within like 10 minutes would be like, what were we thinking?
Another potential contest giveaway. Enter the Matrix. Win Enter the Matrix.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Subscribe, tell your friends.
Yeah, but at the time, I loved the whole Matrix universe.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the Shadows of the Empire sort of thing, where you're playing as, who was it, Ghost and Niobe?
Jada Pinkett Smith's character.
Yeah. So, you're not in the main story, but you're to the side of it, you're parallel, and you sort of weave in and out of the second. And again, I think it was just the second.
FMV unlock reward sequences.
That's true. The hacking thing was cool, though.
Yes.
I remember being, like, super into, like, the whole hacking part of that game. It was interesting.
I wonder, do we plug that in to see if that holds up? Or do we just remember it?
I feel like I would rather do that one than the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. But I'm pretty confident that if we played Two Towers, we'd be like, this game is dope.
Because that game did have like the music too from Two Towers, and like, I remember like the Helm's Deep music being like badass while the fighting was going on.
Right. Yeah.
And there's just like that relentless onslaught of orcs coming at you.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's good. We should check that out at some point.
Maybe the next Let's Play we'll do both.
Yeah, just throw them both in.
Just throw them both in and see, how well.
Next Let's Play, Enter the Matrix and Lord of the Rings 2 Towers. Let us know in the comments. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if the nostalgia glasses hold up like episode 1.
Oof. Throwbacks, man. Just deep cuts today.
We're deep cutting it, man. We're doing it. No, I feel like really what we've, we'll see if you agree, but it feels like, a lot of it is just the setting, the tone, the vibe. But then with the gameplay, like if you're going from movie to game, feels like all you really need to do is make a decent game that's like looks the same as the movie, Yeah,
or then just kind of touch on like certain beats and like I don't know. There's so many of them, and like you mentioned, like it'd be impossible to like get through the list. Like,
right.
It's just insane the amount, like just stuff that you and I never even would have thought of existing. But like, you've got like some classics like that have really nothing to do with anything. Like GoldenEye for the 64 was another one that very little to do with anything outside of the name of the movie.
Yeah, it follows the plot kind of, but there's also so many extra, scenes and places that you go in the game that I don't remember from the movie, and the plot, who cared?
Yeah.
It was literally just you start the mission, you hear that music, you see the objective, and you're like, say no more. Like, I'm going for it. I don't care if it's, Trevenant betrayed me or I betrayed him. Like, it wasn't that, in depth.
Yeah.
And then the extra missions had nothing to do with it. They were just throwbacks to Moonraker and was it You Only Live Twice?
I'm not sure. I'm
Egypt
honestly
was from.
I'm not a big
not a big Bond.
Not a big Bond guy at all.
I spent like one summer watching when they had it on.
Oh, really?
What was it? AMC. They did like the They always
They
do
go
like
through
the
all of
Bond.
them?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
It might have been, what was it, Turner Movie Channel back in the day?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, they would. So I watched, like, I don't know.
I've always found them to be goofy, and like
Yeah,
you can
some
never
of
get
them
into
were.
them.
It depends on the Bond. You know, I feel like Sean Connery was not very goofy, but when you get to, like, I think Moonraker was Timothy Dalton.
Timothy Dalton,
And it's literally on the moon. And that's where the laser gun is from and everything.
Nice.
Like, that one is super, super goofy. Yeah.
spoofed to hell by like Austin Powers and everything.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah, baby.
it depends on which one you're watching. But there's some of them where you know, it's like anything else where you make 15, 20 movies. There's going to be some that are good and some that are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like you said, GoldenEye has very little to do with that's not the hook. You know, the hook was that this was a dope shooter.
It's like one of the first
on the N64.
Yeah, it was like one of the first, like, it kind of set like the 3D shooter. There had obviously been 3D shooters before that, but for like as far as like consoles were concerned,
right,
yeah, that was like kind of the thing that kicked off the whole.
Yeah.
And I remember playing that game even when it came out and like trying to figure out the controls. Even when it came out, the controls were just maddening.
Yeah. Well, it had like 8 different presets.
Yeah.
On there was one where you could play with. It was the first like 2-stick.
Really?
You needed to use 2 controllers.
What?
Yeah, there was one of the presets. If you fire up GoldenEye, it'll be in there.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I don't remember that at
Yeah.
all. That's crazy.
Because otherwise, like the default, you had to hold R to aim, and you would stop moving.
And didn't you move with like the C?
You moved with the
stick?
C, but you
Ugh,
also had to hold down, and it would give you the targeting, the red reticle, and then you would use the control stick
That's
to.
so terrible.
Yeah.
That and like Turok Dinosaur Hunter, just like two of
Turok
the
was
worst.
even worse.
Yeah, that was worse.
Yeah, because that was what, the C stick you moved?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
They were trying, man.
Yeah, they really tried to get their miles out of that weird ass controller.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a fun, weird conversation just because there's so many different like versions of everything, and it's like you have to like sift through a pile of garbage to find that hidden nugget in both stacks.
Right.
And just one stack is bigger than the other.
One stack's bigger than the other, and I feel like just from, word of mouth, the good ones come to the top. Because you and I have been playing video games, like, we always talk about this, way too many hours our entire lives.
A combined lifetime of 70-ish years.
Yeah. And, there's games that you and I were just like, what? Like, how did that become a game? But, yeah, there's a lot of garbage. And honestly, when we first started, like, researching this topic, I thought that there would be more garbage from games being turned into films.
Yeah.
But because there's so few of them, like, I know we didn't touch on all of them, but it couldn't be a list of more than maybe 30 or 40, and I'm being generous at that point.
Yeah, that seems. I mean, I'm not counting like animated adaptations at all.
Right. Yeah, I'm just saying like
live
major
action.
major films. Like, like theatrical releases.
Yeah, and
the other way around, it's an enormous list.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and it goes back, so far back.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I don't know. I would be curious. Anyone out there who's listening, what are some of your favorite video game to film and film to video game adaptations? Like, let us know in the comments below, because I know we only touched on a few, but we would literally be here all day, and we are trying to keep it under a certain runtime for those of us who, are under 40 that don't want to watch a long show.
Yeah, and we also want to know, what you think makes a good video game to film adaptation and vice versa, because there may be something that we're missing. We're just two random guys who like to talk about random crap.
It's a couple of bozos like video games.
Yeah, and movies. Yeah.
And it's odd that like those two things so very rarely mix into something truly excellent.
Right.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Is that it for today?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, I guess plug away. Those of you who, it's your first time here, like, subscribe, comment, YouTube stuff. Brennan, come see Brennan here at New Game Plus.
Yeah, I'll be here, like I said earlier, every day but Monday, 11 to 7. Kingston, New Hampshire, 160 Main Street. Come on down, play some arcades, talk some nonsense. I'm usually bored and, you know, just doing shop stuff, so it'll be good for me to have human contact.
Come talk to the man. He's very sad behind that counter. And this is honestly one of the greatest video game stores you'll ever come to. Like, this place, like, is they have some crazy rare stuff here that you're not going to see anywhere else. So
We just got a Power Glove recently.
it's so bad.
I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
It's horrible. Horrible.